everybody, this is Kristen with the Codex Station with another Codex review. And today is going to be part one of three for all three trade paperbacks of Labyrinth Coronation. Now, if you are a fan of fantasy movies from the 80s, which I am, I know I seem to be a fan of everything, please note that there will be some spoilers, not just for the movie, but also for this particular comic book series. Now, the comic series actually takes place centuries prior to when the movie does. However, it's also being told by characters in the present that are happening at the exact same time of the movie. You do not need to have seen the movie to understand what's happening, which is a good thing because it tells its own story, but just make that known that there's going to be a little bit of spoilers because no matter how much I try to play this in my head to make it as less spoilerific as possible, it's just not going to be 100% possible. So let's talk about Labyrinth. The movie Labyrinth is set in a magical world called the Labyrinth, the Goblin Kingdom. It is based off the idea that the Goblin King, the Goblin King, goes and takes a child when it is wished away. The magic words are, I wish the goblins would come and take you away right now. Never works, but I do sometimes always try. And then the person that wished them away has 13 hours to solve the labyrinth, or else the child that is wished away becomes part of the Goblin Kingdom, presumably as a goblin. So that just kind of gives you that synopsis. This is kind of what we're going to be looking at in this comic series. But before I get too into it, let's talk about who did it. So these are based off of Jim Henson characters and also characters that were designed by Jim Henson and Brian Froud. But this particular story is written by Simon Spurrier. It's illustrated by Daniel Bayliss with, and again, apologies if I mispronounce any names, Irene Flores, Mattia De Meo, Matt Smith, and Michael Dialanis, sorry. Lettered by Jim Campbell and colored by Dan Jackson. Now, you might be wondering why I'm going to be doing three separate reviews for this. Well, the whole entire story is composed in three separate trade paperbacks, but each of them kind of deserve their own review because there are different people that have worked on all three. Many of them are the same, but even that way, everybody gets their own little shout out. Also, I thought it might be interesting to kind of see the progress a whole story can take. Because when you're reading single issues, you have the ability to read, a whole bunch, 20 at a time, but you don't know if that's kind of where the first part of a story ends and then the second part of a story begins and where the conclusion is. So when you do reviews that way, you're kind of going ahead and guessing or saying, hey, I got to read 20 issues. Here's my review for 20 issues. Here, I can kind of see the flow that the publishers wanted to take. Also, the differences in the reviews can be more apparent. A lot like having trilogies in a film, some of them are going to be stronger than others. And I just thought that might be interesting. So each volume is going to get its own rating. And at the end of my review for volume 3, I'll take the average of all of those and make that my review for the whole entire series. So please just hang on with me, okay? So we are introduced to two main characters right at the beginning in the human world. And one looks a lot like Jareth the Goblin King, right there behind me, the main character of the movie. The other one is not Sarah, it is another human woman, and they're in a masquerade ball. Now, I can already tell that these are supposed to be kind of our two main characters, but we don't get a lot of backstory on them. Before we know it, the guy that looks like the Goblin King um, goes ahead and spurns the woman that he's with, his wife, who he has married, but of course she's a lonely commoner and has already given away their baby boy to the Goblin Kingdom. So already, I don't like this guy. All right, I've had a lifelong crush on Jareth. I don't like that you look at like him. There's nothing redeemable about him. This man is whiny. He doesn't have the ability to love. He's conniving and he's too afraid of losing his wealth. Whereas the Jareth that we might know is very charming, sure of himself, seductive, and sexy. Of course, it's David Bowie. Now, we also have our heroine. She also is not as much fun. Again, we didn't get a lot of backstory on these people. So she wants to go ahead and save her son. So she gets to go to the Goblin Kingdom and, of course, has the 13 hours to save their son. Now, right away, I'm already thinking, you made these these two main characters. I already don't like either one. That's not a great start. Maybe if you've given me a little bit more backstory to their love story, how they met, how she became his wife, why he fell in love with a commoner, maybe I would believe it a little bit more. But right now, I'm just like, screw that guy. I don't like you. And I don't know if you're really capable of being our heroine yet. But let's go ahead and give it some time, right? Okay, so now we have our brand new heroine, and there she is faced with the labyrinth that we already know and love. So let's talk about the illustrations thus far. They really are a wonderful throwback and a wonderful likeness to the illustrations of Brian Froud. They do have a lot of differences, a little bit more angular, the color palette's a little bit more muted, but you sit there and you go, okay, I believe that a lot of these characters would belong in the labyrinth. So that is really, really great. It's kind of hard to take somebody else's art style, tweak it to make it your own, but also make it recognizable, especially when you're dealing with something that is such a cult classic. And a lot of people hold beloved in their hearts, this gal included. So I did really want to call that out. So as we have our heroine go through the whole entire labyrinth for this first part, we of course meet some new characters. Some are kind of quickies. And there's one that I really do want to call out. It is a sentient rosebush named Tangle. Yes, sentient rosebush. I am Groot, but they are Tangle. Now, here's the difference. Tangle has probably the most effective use of lettering I have seen thus far in a comic. It actually gives you the whole entire characterization of the character. So Tangle's speech bubbles are a little bit wobbly, tangled. And there are certain parts to their speech bubbles that are like, oh, hi, I'm Tangle. And then really quietly, at least I think that's my name. I think something's happening. Oh, who are you? We just met again. And then really quietly again. So you're getting this what they're saying and their inner monologue as well. So it just gives them a really neat characterization that I really, really did love. That's probably the very first character I really went, okay, you've got me for a little bit at least. And again, as we go through this, we're seeing a lot of likenesses to the original movie. Um, quite like a lot of trilogies, there's not a lot really rocking here. We're just going to go ahead and have our heroine establish what she's trying to do. She's going to meet some fun people along the way. And I think we're going to meet whoever the Goblin King is right now, well, 300 years ago in that labyrinth. Now, I told you that this is told as a story based off of what is happening during the movie. That is true. We get flashbacks, well, or flash forwards, depending on how you look at it, as Jareth the Goblin King is holding a baby Toby, the baby that was wished away in the movie. And he is telling this story of a woman who went and followed through the labyrinth and was following her heart, or did she have a heart? And the story of that family that we're talking about 300 years ago. And as he's doing this, there's another little goblin there that seems very interested in the story. They're very involved. They are also taking care of Toby. So it makes me think, hey, we got a goblin that's at least smart enough to take care of a baby while they're in the labyrinth. If you've seen the movie, you'll see why that's important. But that's kind of a nice throwback. My only issue with how Jareth is portrayed here is because you're not seeing his interactions with Sarah, you're not getting that charm, that seductiveness. Now, that goes with a lot of fan theories that he was playing a part for Sarah. He was playing the villain that she portrayed him to be. But you do still miss it just a little bit. You miss a little bit of that mischievousness. Also, this has no bearing on my rating at all. Jareth's eyes are not the way that they're supposed to be. Sorry, Jareth has been a crush of mine since I was a kid. I know his eyes. I was just like, oh, that's disappointing. By the way, they're David Bowie's eyes, so that's what makes it so kind of ethereal and otherworldly. And that was just a disappointment. Again, no bearing on my rating. That's just a small, minor rant. But in this very first section, that's kind of where we are. We're establishing what the labyrinth was 300 years ago, and we are paralleling it to what it is during the movie. Now, here's what I really, really wish. Again, my main con is you already gave me two main characters that I can't stand. I don't know if that's going to change for the second one or the third one. I don't know if I'm going to get more backstory or not. But to me, the biggest thing when I'm reading a new comic is give me something to hold on to when you're giving me your main characters. Right now, they're both selfish. They're both whiny. They're not super brave at the moment. Yes, our heroine is going to have to go ahead and be brave eventually, but she isn't right now. And to me, that just kind of made it, uh, I guess I'll follow you along just because I want to see what creatures there are, but I'm not super invested yet. So that's my major con. Now, the pros here are definitely going to be the artwork, the throwback to Brian Froud, and the throwback to the Jim Henson creatures, and the effectiveness of the lettering for our sentient rosebush tangle. So, not a lot to say in the first issue for these trade paperbacks, but my rating for that would be a 5.5. Pretty average, slightly above average just for that one character that I really am going ahead and holding on for. Does this mean it's a bad trade paperback? No. It just means that I wish I had been given something a little bit more to hold on to, a little bit more meat. So 5.5. But we're going to see how that flows and changes as we get to volume 2. But for now, that's going to be the end of this review with a 5.5. And in case you've forgotten the short time we've been together, my name's Kristen with the Codex Station. This has been a Codex review, part 1 of 3, so be on the lookout for the other 2, and I hope to see you in the next issue.